everybody, just coming to you today to give you a report on our trip to Dallas, Texas, where we went to the muster this past weekend. This was Lee, Mike, Nick, and myself, and this is all of our leadership team. And we wanted to go to the muster because, well, number one, I've been waiting for 7 years to be able to go there. It was right around 8 or 9 years ago, I believe, that we at our location in Blaine, our little tiny shop, we had an employee. His name was Fenton Ribka, I think is how you say his name. And he listened to Jocko at that time. Jocko was very new, I don't even know if he had started the podcast, but he had just written Extreme Ownership. And then that employee gave me the book called Discipline Equals Freedom. It hadn't even come out yet. It was pre-bought, and I bought him one and he bought me one. And we didn't even know that we'd each bought the other one. Later on in time, I bought that for every one of our team members for, I think it was a Christmas present, and wrote to all of them inside of that book. But just to give you a little bit of background of some of the things, and I'll fill in all the gaps here, but Jocko's COO is Jamie Cochran, and I met her at the Women's Assembly, and I had heard before I went a podcast that she and Jocko and Leif Babin had done. And when Jocko did Extreme Ownership and started selling that, it just blew up, and there was no way that he and Leif could manage all of it. Then there started to be a book tour, and how are they going to do all that? So they brought Jamie on part-time as an office assistant. However, she had multiple degrees and was highly capable, but her husband had been in the military also. And so she wanted to be there working with them. And so Leif had reached out. Jocko didn't think they really needed her there. Well, the book blew up. They needed somebody to schedule all of their book tour now and all the events they needed to be at. And so it was they've probably been doing this for 7 or 8 years, but they started the muster, which is an event where leaders speak to others on leadership and the principles that are in the books. And then people like you and me, people in businesses, homes, lives, whatever, they can all come and listen to these speakers at the muster. So just to tell you about our experience, I've always wanted to go all these years. I thought it was time that we should go. The reason I even give you these reports is because I remember being in the trenches and working 12, 14 hours a day, and there was hardly time to do anything, be with family, friends, whatever. You're in the beginnings of a startup and you're just working yourself like crazy. And that's okay, because we're building businesses, and I know a lot of you are in that same spot. And so it would have been impossible for me to ever go to an event like that. And I remember thinking, if I ever get to go to those events, I will remember the people like me who had to stay back and do the work, didn't have the money or the resources to go to anything like that and to learn. But I also remember thinking, I don't have what it takes yet to be qualified or quote unquote worthy to go to that event. And what I mean by that is, I've also thought of this in regards to Mike having Dr. Trevor Cashy as his coach. So I've had people say to me, well, what if you could have a coaching session with him? And, I don't have the money to do that. But I said, well, I wouldn't anyway. I'm not at the level where my questions would be valid enough or of enough weight to even take his time to answer. So the questions I have are things that are not high level from the top business people in the world. I'm not a Mike Andes. I'm not a Jocko Willink. They are entrepreneurs doing something different than me. And so I wouldn't even, if I had the money, probably take the time from somebody like Dr. Cashy, although I've had dinner with him, enjoyed him thoroughly, love being with him and his wife. And somebody asked me today if there was somebody living or dead that I'd like to have dinner with. He was one of the people I thought of, Elon Musk and Trevor Cashy, but I surround myself with people that I do really respect and like. And so I like having dinner with them. That's nice. So I saved everything that I got so you could see it. So where everybody was going to sit, they were like tables, like classroom style. And then this is like a packet that was on everybody's space, and then a book inside. And this is nice in the front. There's a QR code where you could put your feedback of the event. So this is a really, really nice book. And throughout the book, it puts, it'll have they have a lot of products. So they have a lot of, food products, drinks, powders. They have the soap. I don't know if you know the story of the soap, but there's a little boy that used to listen to Jocko, and he started his own little soap business. And Jocko's always supported that. Throughout, there are quotes. Everyone got a water bottle with their swag bag which says leadership is a skill. Very high quality. They put a lot of money into this event. So the water bottle was attached to this. This says Echelon Front. It's actually the name of their company. And then it has a little bit of a stretchy thing here. But I kept everything except the 2 Jocko Go drinks because I gave one of them to Nick and one to Mike. So Jocko wrote a little novel book here. So that was in everybody's backpack. And then they support a lot of companies. So this is a beef stick they put in there. And then a protein powder of Jocko's, the Molt. And this is a bracelet that I noticed that Nick wore the whole time, pretty impacted by it. And I think Lee may have as well. Lee's dad was in the military and just has a lot of respect. And this was in remembrance to Mark Lee, who actually was shot and then had multiple eye surgeries. I think it was either 16 or 22, and then complications on one of the last ones. And then he ended up dying. And the stories that come out from these events are all of these soldiers. Most of them were Navy SEALs with Jocko, and they're guys that these years later, when they're retired and have retired from other things they're doing, they've come to work with Jocko to lead in this organization. They have PTSD programs. They have skill programs where people can come and learn to deal with high stress situations. And this is for people in businesses. And there's just a multiple amount of things that they do offer. So here's the strawberry milk. You can buy all these things on Amazon. And then there's the Jocko store too. So another protein meat stick. And then this is Hostage, and Hostage cracks me up because I think of Alex Hormozy. This is a nose strip. So that you can try out, and if you like it, you can buy it. Okay, so here's the soap. Trooper soap, handmade goat soap. And this is the little boy's website. I doubt he's a little boy anymore, for those who get after it. Isn't that cool? And a little piece of the soap. They gave something like that at the women's assembly as well. And then they put some nuts in there. And then Jocko has greens, kind of like a lot of people do the AG1 greens. And then here's a hydrate pack. So these powders, they also have in the actual bottle that's prepared. So like I know Nick drinks milk every day in the powder, but he's never had the ones in the bottle. So they offered that too. So here's another hydrate packet. So it's kind of cool. They're letting you taste a bit of everything. And then they put a protein bar in there as well. So all of that, all those amazing gifts, plus the 2 Jocko Go drinks, which was pretty crazy amazing. So each morning they had what's called PT, 4:45. Whoever wanted to be there could come for this PT, and they did let you know it was going to be beforehand. There were multiple emails before the event letting people know what was going to happen and where to be when. So these would be like a WOD, or workout of day, where there's 6 exercises and you do them all for 30 seconds, and they're called rounds. And then you start those 6 exercises again. You do them for 30 to 45 seconds each, and you switch to the next one, and you do that 6 exercises, whatever, for several minutes. So this workout was supposed to be 45 minutes. There were 1,000 people at the event, and I think there was definitely 600 that came to the workout. So it was in this gigantic parking lot that we went up to at the hotel. So that was kind of neat. It was pretty cool to work out with that many people. So the first day it was push-ups, burpees, this core lift thing. I'm not going to be able to think of them all right now. Sit-ups. So there were a bunch that day, and then a bunch the second day. And then at the end of the workout, then everybody comes together in solidarity, and they tell a story about one soldier or something to do with them. And then there's one last workout piece that everyone does together. So that was pretty cool. Every time I go to these events, I get ideas for hours and how I want to have the experience be for our attendees. Of course, Echelon Front has done this for a lot of years. They have a lot of funds, and the more funds you have, the more you can offer for your attendees. So I can't expect us to operate at that level yet, but we'll be there someday. It's always good to know people that have gone before you and done these things so that we can offer those to people in our landscaping demographic and business demographic. So day one, they'd have day one, and then all the training, all the verbiage is the military verbiage. And then there's laws of combat. And then here's on the back, Echelon Front, all the instructors. So these are incredible people. A lot of them are Navy SEALs. There's one specifically, Dave Burke, that you've probably heard on the Jocko podcast. And he is a pilot that in the entire world, there is likely not another person that has the skill to fly the planes that he does. So a lot of times a pilot will learn to be really good at one aircraft that they can fly, but to be good at multiple ones and to know them well and to fly them in combat is pretty rare. And so Dave was one of them. He's the Chief Officer of Development and Curriculum of Senior Leadership Instructor and retired U.S. Marines Corps Top Gun instructor. When the movie Top Gun came out, I remember, if you want to see this, you can go back on Jocko's podcast and see. It was a breakdown of the whole movie with him and Jocko, and it was cool. He was able to talk about the whole movie, the book. He was the guy. So it's pretty phenomenal to hear these people talk. So there was also another gentleman that spoke. I was able to meet him and get his picture with us and the team as well. And he, let me see if I can find him here. He was the one of those that would try to disassemble bombs, and he had one that detonated. He told the story about that and how that he lost both of his legs, his lower legs. His name is Rob Jones. He's a leadership instructor and a retired U.S. Marine. A lot of great speakers. They had Jamie, who was the COO and leadership instructor there. So a few women they have. Those are the same women that spoke at the Women's Assembly that I was at last year. And it wouldn't be any new material for those of us that have listened and taught the extreme ownership principles and heard all the stories, the interviews, and about people's lives. There was very little new material that I heard. And that is because they could take concepts that are in the book, a whole chapter, and they can talk about specific military events or missions and then bring that into business, the workplace, and life. And they're able to teach those same concepts, and there are things that help all of us in our business and everything. So things that stood out to me was that I didn't hear a lot of new content, and I didn't think that I would. To me, it was the idea of just to go there, to see all of their team interact, to be in a room with like-minded people. So we are landscapers. There's a certain look about a lot of us. We don't look professional. And I was just blown away at the care that every attendee had of the way they looked and presented themselves. It was the most clean-cut group of people, haircuts, shaved. Don't kill me, guys. But everybody was dialed in. And the quality of the attendees, everybody was so considerate of the others. Nobody ever left trash on their table or the floor or anything. It was like people that embody extreme ownership and lived all the principles that we teach. And they embodied them and they carried them out. Their communication was the same, the way they conducted themselves. So there was a few questions and answers from people. Jocko is just a person, exactly like I thought he would be. We have listened to him talk for thousands of hours on the podcast. So it'd just be like if you met one of us, just hello, I've already talked to you for hours and hours. So it's no different than meeting us in person. I was able to meet his daughter again. That was nice. And Leif Babin is the one that he wrote Extreme Ownership with. Jocko was over Leif. And so they talked about multiple missions. It was kind of neat. There'd be two of them on the podium. and one would speak and then hand it off to the other, and they would talk about a topic and then back to them. They would role play. Then they had these fire breakout sessions where different ones of us would be at our tables and talk about specific leadership things or hang-ups or something in our lives and how we could handle and manage those. So one kind of funny thing that happened was the first morning when I met Jocko, so we all went out and we're doing our workout in the morning. Well, what's really funny is I always get up at 3 a.m. and I work out and then I go to work at Augusta. And so Nick was there, Lee was there, and Mike. Well, I knew Mike was up working all night on the workshop for our conference and that he was going to be super tired. He probably wouldn't even come. So we're supposed to be there at 4:45. So I'm like, get to sleep in today. So I had set my alarm with enough time to get up and be ready and meet the guys and stuff for our Uber. And I must have just turned it off and been like, yeah, there's lots of time, and went back to sleep. Well, I get this call from Mike, who was not supposed to be there in the first place, but ended up sleeping 1 hour and coming with us anyway. And he's like, where are you at? And I'm like, oh no. And they were in the Uber already. So I hopped out of bed, threw my workout clothes on, grabbed my shoes, and ran. I got in the elevator, ran through the lobby. It was just running like crazy. I saw Mike, we jumped in the Uber and we took off. So while I'm driving there, I'm getting my shoes and socks on and everything, and I can't find my shoe. So I'm looking everywhere on the floor and all around. I have one shoe. So I put the 2 socks on and the one shoe. Meanwhile, Nick is just blown away at this person he's always known that's so disciplined, so on top of their game, gets up so early, and here he and everybody else is in the car waiting on me, and I've overslept. So he's just like blown away that this is happening, and he's seeing it before his very eyes. And then this person that he respects, who has it all dialed in, only has one shoe. So we arrive at the place and there's, 500 people in the lobby, and I walk in with my one shoe on, and the guys are like, take your shoe off. That looks so weird. So I took my shoe off. I'm like, it looked weird with 2 socks. So I took the socks off too. And so then all this group of people had to walk for quite a ways and then take a bunch of stairs or an elevator and get to the top of this thing. So as you can imagine, doing burpees barefooted on concrete makes your toes pretty much raw and bloody. And another thing we had to do was the sit-ups, which on concrete really messes up your spine and gives you a bruise. Story about that in a minute. So we do the whole workout. I'm barefooted for the whole thing. And then I saw Jocko, he's just a little bit over. So their team walked around. Some of their team did the workout with us. Some just walked around and talked in the megaphones. And so I saw him, I'm like, oh, I want to get my picture with him. I want to say hi to him. So as soon as it was over, I kept my eye on where he was. It was dark, pitch black outside, except for the lights on the parking lot. So I ran over to him like, oh, hello, I would like to get my picture with you if I could. And he's like, great, how are you? Where are you from? It was hilarious. Nick walks up and he's like, I'm Nick. We're from Augusta Lawn Care. Like he's going to know who we were or anything, but it was great. So I was going to get my picture with him, but then my guys came up and they're like, hey, can we be in the picture? So I graciously allowed them to be in the picture too. But if you look close at what I posted, you'll see that I don't have any shoes on. So that's fine. We talked to him for a minute and we head out. So the next morning, I wear my shoes. Everybody knows, news has spread, that woman that was wearing that had no shoes on, right? Why wasn't she wearing shoes? So when I got back to the hotel, what had happened was I was tearing through the parking lot and one of the shoes had fallen down and one of their employees grabbed it and was trying to catch me. So I knew I had 2 shoes when I left my hotel room. So the next afternoon, I wanted to meet Jocko just to get my picture taken with him. And I wanted to meet Leif too. So they would have these long lines. Well, as soon as I knew they were going to do it, I was going to try to get in line quickly. And Lee wanted to get some autographs for his little boy, for some books and things. So Lee and I waited in line together. And then I got to the front of the line and I told Jocko that I was just real quick, just while we were doing the picture, I said that I had read Extreme Ownership 12 times And I told him I just had a thick skull. That's why I had to listen to it 12 times. And he's like, I don't even think I read it 12 times. And she's like, hey, were you the girl who was working out yesterday with no shoes on? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, he told me about the story about his little boy that they had homeschooled for a while. And his kid would never put his shoes on. And he'd run outside and play and do all this stuff. And his mom was constantly yelling at him to put his shoes on. And finally, she was like so exasperated with him one day, get your shoes on. And he's like, I don't have any shoes. And it's because they had homeschooled. So they didn't do like before school shopping and everything. So he was just barefooted. So Jocko told me that story. And then he's like, I just said you were just a freaking badass woman out there like doing the workout without your shoes on. And so it was pretty funny. So we got our picture taken together with and then I got teased later about his fist being so big and mine being so little, but it was a great experience. It was nice to meet him. He's no different than I thought he would be, just a person. And I think it would be fun to do something with their group. I really like them all. I found their team to be very approachable. They have exhibited what I have sought for our team exhibit, and I know that they do, and that is to think of every attendee that's coming and give them a good experience. They paid a lot to be there. We should be exposable to them. They should be able to talk to us all. We're the people they came to see. We're the people they've listened to all this time. And I appreciated that about all their team. They weren't cliquish. They weren't off in their corners. They were communicating with everyone and making them feel welcome. And I thought that was very good about their team. I know the reputation that our team at Augusta has always gotten is how we take care of each other and interact with one another. And that was commendable for them, but mostly it was how they welcomed all the attendees and how special it was that they made it for everyone. So a lot of leadership topics, a lot of stories from the war. A lot of times when people did things they spoke on were when they failed. And then other times when they lost someone in the military and how they remembered that person, how it changed them, and how their lives are now because of those experiences. Their business is very well run. There's multiple divisions of it. Some of you may have heard of Origin, and that is in Maine, and they actually have their own manufacturer company where it's all Americans that work there, and they make geese and jeans and shirts. Also met Echo, who Echo Charles is the one who sits and does the interviews and the podcast with Jocko. So I asked him different questions about what they do for our media team. They the same, have 6 or 7 people, and I noticed that he would mingle around during the event. And Mike whispered to me, like, is he in charge of the whole thing? Or what is he doing? Is he one of the videographers? Because sometimes he had a camera. So I asked him if I could talk to him for a minute. And then I asked him Mike's questions to see kind of how he runs things. What's he in charge of? What does he edit? Throughout the event, on the stage, they would break it up and they'd have different videos. Some were kind of advertisements for their products, their books, or whatever, but they were all ones that Echo had created. So very creative work. And he does the thumbnails. Now he has a full creative team, but everything passes through him. And then he does all of the podcasts with Jocko that you see all the time. And he just does incredible work. Very humble, wonderful to meet. What I really wanted to go to this year was the jiu-jitsu, which was the last night. But many times when you go to events like this, you're taking notes, you're diving in, you are there to see how you need to change and be better at your job, and never having like a pitchfork thing or like, oh, so-and-so should hear this, Lee should hear this, Nick should hear this. It was like always self-reflective. Where can I change and what do I need to do? And a lot of the concepts and everything were fine. We've got them dialed in. We've done them for years. It was more so I needed to know, like, I was sitting by Mike. He's exhausted. He's been working on our conference, not sleeping much because he works all night on the workshop, plus all the other things we do. And just sensing that he's frustrated a little bit. And okay, now is it because he's tired? Is it because he's got so much on his plate? Like, talk to me. So it was great. It was an opportunity that we wouldn't normally have right in the middle of the thing, and it's going on. And I don't know if it was a break or something, but he was able to express kind of where he felt about all different parts of the business and what all the leadership team were working on. And so then he had to leave for some Zoom calls. So while he was gone, I just wrote an entire page of like, here are the people that Mike spends a lot of time with, very high level people. And he is a visionary and he's way up here seeing the vision. But then you have all of us who are not with this group of people way up here. And we are trying to carry out the mission and be the boots on the ground and do everything down here, inspire the teams and take care of them. But you can't read the leader's mind. And yet the leader is a visionary and they are going for it. But one thing I told him, the people that are below that, us, you can't, because they are not in that place where you are. There's no way, because they're not there, because they're not hearing the same conversations, because they're not reading the same content and being immersed in it like you as a visionary are with the other visionaries. How in the world would we guess how he wants things to be? So it was really good, rare opportunity. Instead of doing the jujitsu, we went out together, and then each person, he asked how he could support them. We were all able to express like, this is where I need it. And my big comment, and I will say this to you for all your employees, you don't know what you don't know. And you can't expect your team to be doing something or performing, or why can't they get that done? And they don't do it as good as me. They probably don't even know that there's questions they're supposed to ask you. So you would probably say, well, here I am. I'm right here. I'm available. Ask me questions. They don't know there's a flaw or a gap or a void. So sometimes your people just need to hear from you. You're tired, whatever. And so Mike has had to figure out everything on his own by himself and just work himself to death all these years. And so he likes to say, hey, we need to do this, go for it. And so it is up to individuals to get their own self educated, to keep reaching out and personally growing and getting better. And because there's going to be times that come and you got to be ready to go to the next step. And you will not feel ready to go to the next step, but it should be that you are the next one and you are able to take the time and the energy to do the training of your own self that you need to do to be ready for the position that's coming ahead for you. And when you get into that position and you feel like throwing up because you are like, oh my goodness, I'm way in over my head, or I've been given more responsibility than I can, it's up to you to get the resources that you need. So all I need was a few minutes with Mike. What do you need? What do you want to see? What don't you like? And then we can go into action, which all three of us have done, to give him what he needs so that he doesn't have to be frustrated, because he has a vision of what he wants us to be, where we're going, what we're doing. But sometimes we just need to have those times, which we wouldn't have had, which makes the whole trip worth it, because there would never have been a time, having heard the depth of all we heard, sitting there absorbing it, and then to come away together and be kind of separate from everything and to go over that. So somebody did ask, is this the kind of event I should go to the expense of and bring my entire team to? And one thing Mike had said was he used to think yes. And so he brought the entire team of us, all the landscaping team, the office people or whatever, and we went to an event. And it was a small event in our town, but it was nevertheless for business owners. Well, he brought our entire team, field team and everyone. And the guys didn't understand it and they're falling asleep. And it wasn't something that you would take frontline employees, because they don't care. They're just there to work, they're to get their paycheck. But you might have another employee who has a lot of potential and they've been listening to audibles and all these things, and they're doing the best they can. It probably still isn't the time for them yet. You want to take people that have been on the path before you spend that kind of money for them. Otherwise, this is what I found. You take somebody who's not ready and you put them in a situation where they're hearing all of this extreme ownership stuff. All they're doing is running that through a filter of leaders they've had and leadership that they've experienced. They're not running it through a filter of their leadership, what they are doing, because they haven't experienced it yet. It's nice to have them in there watching you, being a part of what's going on, because what I found can happen is you bring some of them to an event like this and their maturity and their business acumen is not where it should be yet to handle all of that. It's very important that for years and years you're teaching this, they are listening to audibles, they are seeing you emulate it and talk about it. And so then when this time would come, they don't really need to be there for a very long time. And so I already had tickets for Lee, Mike, and I to go. And then when Nick became the regional manager, I surprised him and I bought him a ticket too for us all to be going together. This has never happened before. It is a very rare and wonderful experience, but that evening that we could talk together made it all worth it. Well, the expense, because, and this is the way I look at it, because we were finishing the workout one morning and Nick and I were walking back with, these hundreds of people. And Nick was like, how do you justify the cost of us coming to an event like this? It's so expensive. Like, it's a little bit overwhelming. And I said, well, when I used to work at the shop and in the office, it would bother me that I was 100% overhead cost. And I would think, oh my goodness, I'm costing the company so much money, but I'm not like the guys. I'm not working in the field and bringing in money. And all that I thought I could do was we sold product like rock, mulch, and soil and everything. And so I would try really hard to sell lots of that product to cover my wage, as well as help the guys do the follow-up calls and everything and help sell jobs, and to be really fast on the draw with that to sell the jobs. So that was how I did my part to try to bring in enough revenue to cover all the wages of mine. And so I told Nick, I said, so, okay, we spend thousands of dollars, we bring us here. But I said, what's expected is that you're going to go back from everything you've heard here and you are going to better lead and you're going to better coach and you're going to support 155 owners. And look at the impact that will have. And then Lee is going to take what he's learning. He's going to go back and he's going to pour that into sales and a sales process. And when he does the training for the new franchisees when they come, I'm going to go back and all the things that I've discussed with Mike here that we think we should do for the future, we're going to implement that into training for the franchisees, for the training for my team at Command Center, and measurables that we want for Command Center and to help the franchisees more. 100% of all of that benefits everyone in the franchise. So it also helps people as a whole in our service industry. So each of the guys were able to say what they gleaned from our time there, what stood out to them, each of them. And it was wonderful to go together. Like I said, not so much the content because we've already been sharing that it was the same things we've always heard, like from the books, except there were examples that maybe we hadn't heard before, or they brought speakers in that would share their story about their mistakes. And those particular people's stories weren't in the books. So those were really nice to hear. So then I felt like I did hear a little bit of something that I hadn't heard before. But I have found, like, for instance, if you went to acquisition.com like Mike did and then I did, it's not the kind of thing that you would say, oh, I'm going to go back next year, or I'm going to go back next year, because it's going to be the same material. So it's the same for the muster. They have all these talks they do, all the material, they bring all this merch, and they've dialed it in because they've done it over and over and over. I think they've done, 20 something of these. They've done a lot of them. And so if you do the very same thing, very same curriculum, very same speeches, you're going to be pretty good at it after 20 times. And we were laughing about that. Mike's like, wow, if I had 20 times to do any of the things we do, when we're constantly giving all new content for every conference and for everything we do, different speakers, different speeches. So we learned from the best of things that we can implement. And then there's other things that we appreciate that we are doing that will be a little bit different and that we want to continue to give to all of our listeners and to the owners. So please feel free to ask me questions anytime. I 100% go to these events to think of how I can come back and be better, what other people that didn't get to go would want to hear and want to know. And that's why I didn't use anything in my swag bag, so I could come back and show it to all of you. And the books that we got are books that you can write in, and page numbers that match their slides and stuff. It was pretty cool. So I'll be able to go through that and put more notes. We got certificates of completion, and which is really not a big deal that you took the class, that you came. And I had to grab Mike's real quick because Mike throws everything away. So I'll throw them away too, but at least we got them. And I'll throw a picture of Jocko and I up there. We were able to take a picture of all of our team with him after we worked out in the morning. That was super nice. And then we got pictures of the rest of the team, some of their team, which you can see on Facebook. Dave Burke, I was really happy to get a picture with him, the fighter pilot. And then the other gentleman, Rob, that the bomb detonated and took off his legs. But since then, he did, 31 marathons in 31 days. And he has his 2 artificial legs and pretty powerful impact when he spoke and the things that he's accomplished and done. So it was nice to get a picture with him one of the mornings as well. Felt very honored to be able to go. Feel very grateful to work with Lee, Mike, and Nick. Completely understand that there's people that could do my job better. And that is something that I laid out very carefully when Nick and I spoke even. It's like, you can always bring, and you will have this question about your business, you can always bring people in and you can pay them more, and you can bring them straight to the top, and they can come in and break things and do all kinds of stuff and really whip the place into shape quickly. And you want that. And sometimes you need that. Or you can continue on a longer time span to take people from within, groom them up, and they would be your people. Ideally, that's what you want to do, because you can't replace the commitment, the loyalty, people that catch the vision. But what you want to know is, are they capable to go to those next levels? Because you can take somebody from the field and move them up position in position. They may completely dominate for the first 1, 2, 3, but to take them up further, they might not be capable. So that's where I just laid it out straight. Okay, this is where we are. This is where we want to go. All of our positions we have held up to this time and done very well at them. Going forward, do we have the skills? Okay, if we don't have the skills to do something, do we have the ability to learn and to get better at those things and continue on with the growth of this fast growing company? Or do we bring someone else in and we work under them? So the answer to that is, if you want to stay with the people you have and continue to bring them up through the company, yes, they can do it, but they have to be determined and understand that what got them here will not get us there. And so I have to try new, different angles to get myself educated, to be prepared, to do networking with other people that are COOs and get depth from them. I go to these events, I'm able to talk to their COO, Jamie Cochran, and I have a little bit of a rapport with her from some of the things we've discussed after the events and gifts that we've given one another and things. It's just created a really nice opening for us to communicate. I think that we will do more together in the future. I hope so. She's a great person. And I think that the quality of them and what we've got to offer could help a lot of people, maybe at the Women's Assembly or something. But I believe firmly that you can bring people from within, but you also have to be careful of when is it a time that they don't have the skill to move forward. If you're going to throw your bet on the employees that you have, give them resources, give them the autonomy to run with it and to learn and to grow and to change on their own. If you're not going to be spending time with them, what you don't want to have to do is micromanage them, tell them you do this, you do that. It should be that you are like, oh yeah, we should this. I have a vision for this, or I kind of want to do this. And then they take it, they figure it out and they run with it. You could as the owner, but you don't have time. You don't have time to learn all these different things and get schooling on all these different things. You want people who learn it better than you and can take it and run with it. I don't know what else I could tell you today, except these events are powerful on multiple levels. and for different reasons for everyone at different stages of their life. So if you are a small business owner and you have digested a lot of Jocko's material and leadership and self-help stuff, I would suggest that you go with you and your spouse, maybe just the two of you, a weekend away, and go to something like this. As your company grows, maybe take, if your wife is your office person, you, your wife, and a GM. I have people in the command center, employees of mine, that I'm watching and grooming and seeing how they are. And I've already promised them, this is what I need to see. This is what I'm seeing in you. And this is the potential I know that you have. And so next year, I would like to take you to the muster. I would like to take you to the women's assembly because I see qualities of leadership in you. And those people that I've said that to have already raised the bar more. By the time I take them to those events, they will be ready. They will be ready to, because they're now in the pressure of it and watching me and expecting me to have, for them to have leadership skills. And I am seeing them in them. And so I know they will have now felt by then the pressure of failing and doing well and doing the leadership thing. It's really an honor and a privilege to be a leader, but you got to constantly be ready to be humbled and to not have an ego. Keep your ego in check. And that was a big thing that Lee said was his takeaway, was ego was mentioned in almost every talk. And if you can keep your ego out of things, we all have one, and do not let it dominate all that we do. All of the principles, cover and move, detach, prioritize and execute. I highly recommend that you listen to Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy of Leadership, Leadership Strategies and Tactics. That one's really good. That one's a green cover. And then there's this one, Discipline Equals Freedom. And it's the kind of book, it's a military font, and it's all the black paper and military font. And I have one of these, and I have used it so much that it is in shambles. Like all the binding is broken off and the pieces were loose. And when I had moved and got rid of almost everything I owned, I gave Lee all my set of my Jocko books, except that one that was falling apart. And it was super special. When Nick came away, he gave me this, and it was a special gift that he bought for me this past weekend. So yes, I have Jocko's autograph in here, but guess whose I want? I want Nick's. So I will probably have Nick's autograph in here for me. Goes to show the people you have in your life can be pretty awesome. They could be the people that you want their autograph. So we'll keep making each other famous. And I love you all. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you at the Blue Collar Summit. We have so many great things planned for you there. I hope you have the most amazing day, and we'll talk to you soon.